New devices are found daily to make our lives easier, and the equipment you see on display is designed to lighten the burdens of cooking and housework.
Yeah, very nice too. But you don't need all this expensive gadgetry in order to have a well-run home.
We asked Gilbert Harding to be here on account of his strong views on many subjects. So let's hear what he has to say.
Well, I'm here because I loathe muddle and I can't stand waste. And in many houses there's far too much of both. I want to show how they can be simply and inexpensively avoided.
Thank you. Over to you.
Well, we concentrate on the kitchen because that's the place where most of the work of the home is done. A well-run kitchen is as important to a home as a smoothly running engine room is to a ship. When most people hear of a planned kitchen, they're inclined to think of a film star set up like this. But a perfectly ordinary kitchen, properly planned, can run just as efficiently.
Just a moment. What exactly do you mean by an ordinary kitchen?
Well, a kitchen is a room where some or most of the following things are done. Cooking and washing up, washing clothes, drying and ironing, the storing of cooking and eating utensils and cleaning materials, and of course the storing of food. Now, in an ordinary kitchen, there's the basic equipment for these jobs. And in a well-run kitchen, the equipment is so arranged in a way which saves the housewife time and energy. This is the model of a council house kitchen, which is used for all the jobs I've just mentioned. First of all, let's see what's good about it. The sink's in the right place under the window, and that gives a good light to work by. The wash tub is sensibly stored under the draining board, out of the way when it's not in use, and handy to the sink for filling and emptying and for rinsing the clothes when it is. And that's a useful cupboard, which top makes an extra working surface. But it's in the wrong place, and so is the cooker. You don't have to be an expert to see that that's an idiotic place to put it. What happens to the poor wretched housewife when someone comes hurrying through the door?
I always get knocked flying. It happens all the time.
And you're prepared to let it go on happening. Why don't you do something about it?
That's all very well, but it's not our fault. We wouldn't have planned it this way. It was like this when we moved in.
Oh, it's not too bad, darling. It does us.
Yes, but does it do you? Let's get this pie out of the way and try an experiment. That's better.
What's happening?
Now, will you please dish up that meal that you're preparing? And we'll plot all your movements on a model. And then we'll see just how much fetching and carrying you needn't do.
Well, it seems like a lot of fuss about nothing to me. Meals don't just dish themselves up. Everybody knows that.
Just look at the number of journeys she's making. The meat's done, so there's a trip from the cooker to the table. Then to the cupboard for gravy browning and a jug and a dish for the meat. Meat in the oven to keep warm. Mix the gravy at the sink. Gravy into the grill pan and boil it up at the cooker. Now the custard. Saucepan from the cupboard to the stove. Milk from the larder into the saucepan on the stove and put the empty bottle by the sink. Sugar, custard powder, and a bowl, all from the cupboard to the table. Add the sugar to the milk, and mix the custard at the table, and look out! The milk's boiling!
There. Not bad, was it?
Not bad. It was dreadful. I counted 20 journeys.
Yes, 20 journeys, carrying things. A total of nearly 100 yards.
You see, as far as from here to the corner of the street and back. I wonder how many miles a day you walk in this kitchen. And all because most of your equipment's in the wrong place. The cooker is too far from the sink. And then...
Well, we can't do much about that for a start.
But of course you can. I agree it might be a bit difficult to move the sink. In any case, you don't want to. It's about the one thing that is in the right place. It's not too big a job to move the cooker. A few extra feet of gas piping or electric cable shouldn't cost too much. Let's try it. Now, you want a place to put cupboard for a start.
But that's where I keep my brooms and dusters and vacuum cleaners.
Do you use them in the garden?
Of course not.
Then why do you keep them by the garden door? Put them by the door into the rest of the house and save yourself a walk across the kitchen every time. There, that's better. Now let's get that confounded table out of the way. Now, a shelf near the cooker, that's the only additional thing that you need. And you'll be surprised at the difference.
The cooker and the sink should always be close together, because together they form the center of most kitchen activity. Between them, and on either side, work surfaces are required, provided here by the draining boards and the cupboard top. So we now have an almost ideal kitchen arrangement.
Whose idea was it anyhow? Well, let's see how it works.
This is the housewife's workbench. It consists basically of work surface, cooker, work surface, sink, work surface. It can be in a straight line as here, or in some kitchens it may be more convenient to have it arranged in a U or L shape. The important thing is that it should be in a continuous line, and not broken by a door or any sort of gap through which people can pass. Observe how walking is reduced to a minimum, and how time and energy are saved by lifting things up or down as required, rather than carrying them from place to place.
Observe too, my invisible friend, how the husband can now be usefully occupied in laying the table, which his wife no longer has to clutter up with all her cooking things.
Where possible, a kitchen table should be positioned against a wall. In the center of the room it causes an obstruction, and its negotiation increases the distance which has to be walked.
He means it was in the way. And of course he's right. Where are you going with that?
I thought this stuff would look a bit tidier over here. Later on I might get rid of this cupboard and rig up a curtain across the corner.
Do you have to do your washing in the kitchen? That doesn't seem right.
What's wrong with it?
Well, isn't it absurd that people should be expected to prepare and eat their food in the same room they do the washing?
Very often it's the only solution. To provide plumbing for a separate laundry room may be costly and impractical. Where space permits, the best solution is to do the laundry in the bathroom, which is not in constant use.
You should see our bathroom. There's hardly room to wash it there.
I said where space permits.
But it's surely better than having your food taste of soap and your shirt smelling of fried onion. Well, it's obviously a matter of personal preference, isn't it? But I'd say that in general, these people have got a good, labor-saving, efficient kitchen. And remember, it didn't take a lot of money or a lot of gadgets. Just a little thought and common sense. I'm afraid, though, it'll take more than that to make anything of this house. Some friends of mine, they've 2 children at school, are thinking of buying it. Well, I'm very sorry for them, especially for her. The house is typical of those that were built about 100 years ago, and unfortunately are still standing, and which have to be lived in by people who really deserve something better. The cupboards there.
Right.
Well, according to the list there, this must be the scullery. Useful scullery, the house agents say. Containing sink with hot and cold water supply. They don't mention that it's a day's march from the kitchen every time you want to fill a kettle. And this must be the butler's pantry. Let's have a look. Pantry with butler's sink. Splendid. Now all they need is a butler. I know that this sort of house was built with the idea that you'd have servants run it for you. But what was to be gained by making their job more difficult and tiresome? I don't know. Spacious kitchen. Well, it certainly is spacious, but as most of the food preparation goes on at the sink, this is so much space wasted. There are so many snags. I just wouldn't know where to begin. But I wonder what that man who seems to know all the answers has to say about it.
Of course, it's an old-fashioned house and needs to be modernized. Suppose your friends are moving in with the equipment from their previous home. Their problem is to arrange it to suit the way they want to live. The scullery will become the new kitchen, and after a coat of paint, the first thing to do is to get a good working unit arranged. Take the sink. It's too high for comfort. To lower it by a few inches is a comparatively simple matter, and boxing it in will provide a storage space for cleaning materials. The cooker goes against the end wall, and together with the sink forms the basis of an L-shaped unit. By filling in with work surfaces, the unit is complete. The best storage space beneath these surfaces is in the form of open shelves, which are easily accessible. A shelf for pots and pans above the cooker saves time and energy. It should always be the aim to store things close to where they're to be used. Next, the refrigerator, convenient to the work surfaces and to the larder. And vegetables are stored near the sink. Failing a butler, the butler's pantry becomes a separate laundry room, an arrangement which has already been mentioned. Now for the room which used to be the kitchen. As it stood, it represented a considerable waste of space, but it's a most convenient size for the family to have their meals in. The only structural alteration is the serving hatch leading to the new kitchen. Cooking utensils and raw foodstuffs are kept out, and the dresser and cupboard contain only what goes straight onto the table: cutlery, china, table linen, and things like sauces and condiments. The tall cupboard near the door holds brooms and other cleaning materials, though room for these might be found under the stairs. With the boiler in this room, it's always warm, even at breakfast time on cold winter mornings. So here's an old house with a new lease of life. It was designed for conditions very different from those today, but attention to modern needs and sound planning principles have transformed it into a comfortable and well-run home.
That's all very well, but what about the homes of today and tomorrow? Have our designers learned nothing from the mistakes of the past? Or is a new generation of housewives going to use this marvelous, shiny equipment in the same old, muddled way?
There's no reason why they should. Housewives' needs have been studied and analyzed by the scientists. It's possible today to design a kitchen as efficiently as a motor car. This one has been planned from the beginning according to the principles we've mentioned. The washing machine is kept close to the sink so that there's no need to carry water about for filling or emptying. The door of the cooker opens away from the window so as not to cast a shadow in the oven. The heat-resisting worktops are on either side of the cooker. The right-hand one is 3 feet from the floor, the other is 3 inches lower, as this has been found more convenient for some jobs like chopping and pastry making. The pan shelf over the cooker is at a convenient height. Cupboards and drawers, both above and under the work surfaces, are for cutlery, kitchen utensils, and so on, kept so that they're found where they're needed for use. And things that are used together are always stored together. Most meals are eaten at this table, placed against the wall so as not to obstruct movement across the kitchen. But this serving hatch, with drop table on the far side, is used when meals are taken in the sitting room. There's a well-ventilated larder, and next to it, the 2 cupboards with sliding doors contain ironing board, brooms, other house cleaning materials, and the vacuum cleaner, thus completing a perfect, modern, labor-saving kitchen.
Just a minute. You sound like a TV commercial. I want to know what the person who does all the work thinks about it.
Me? I like it. Everything's just where I want it.
Satisfied, Mr. Harding?
No, indeed, I'm not. You've shown that it's a perfectly simple matter to design a kitchen, that it's a pleasure rather than a torture to work in, and it isn't just a question of money, it's a question of thought. Yet millions of women in this country are being tortured. Their housework exhausts them and takes up every minute of their working day, and all because their homes aren't properly planned. It's the business of those who build houses to think of the housewife's job and see that the home is planned so that she can do it properly. It's up to you to think what you want and to see that you get it. If the layout doesn't suit you, then change it. And if there's a piece of equipment that seems designed for the maker's profit rather than for your convenience, don't buy it. And don't just put up with things that you know are wrong. And now, to help you to remember what we're aiming for, let's go over the main points just once again. The first essential of a well-run home is an unbroken sequence of work surface, sink, work surface, cooker, advice in choosing or planning your household equipment, there are lots of magazines, and there are organizations, and they'll help you without any extra grind. Your local library, Citizens Advice Bureau, or the housing department will tell you which ones to ask. Home should be made for people, and not the other way around. And the same applies to the things you put in it. If you yourself are a slave to your home and its equipment, then there's something radically wrong. It is up to you to plan your home so that the work is done quickly and you have the time and the energy in which to enjoy your leisure.